mom giving advice to millions of other parents across this country.
But what was really going on inside her own family? An all-new 2020 begins right now.
Police officers, open up! Jody, I need you to step out.
I have my attorney.
There's 2 other kids there. We need to go do a security sweep of the house.
So many desperate searches.
Where we didn't know if another sibling was possibly even dead.
So few answers. Until now, the police tapes being seen for the first time.
So they do an hours-long search.
Gathered ropes, handcuffs. There were rolls of duct tape. The things that were clearly evidence of abuse.
You have now heard about this since the arrest of a 2 million subscriber plus YouTube mom vlogger.
You guys, in 1 year, we've gained 600,000 subscribers. Ruby Franke has been charged with 6 felony counts of child abuse. If you cut one more thing in my house, I'm going to take the scissors, look at me, and I'm going to cut its head off.
Ruby Franke built a persona of, strict parenting.
Strict or sadistic?
This just didn't sound like a horror movie.
This is a witch hunt. This person has after me for years.
Police department, make yourself known!
It's a hot summer morning in the Kayenta neighborhood of Ivins, Utah, when a Ring camera picks up a young boy, not wearing any shoes, approaching a home. He rings the doorbell. No one answers. A minute later, another Ring camera from the neighboring home picks up the same boy. He tries the doorbell. It seems like no one's home at first. But then, the door opens.
Yes.
Hi, I was wondering if you could do some favors.
Well, what are they?
Taking me to the nearest police station. Well, actually, just one's fine.
What's going on, sir? Have a seat, sir.
And what happens next will kick off an investigation that will rock this otherwise sleepy, picturesque suburb. In fact, it'll shock the world.
911, tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he had just came from a neighbor's house. He's emaciated. He's got tape around his legs. He's hungry and he's thirsty.
One of the most gut-wrenching things about that 911 call, you can hear in that homeowner's voice, he starts to cry, talking about the boy.
He has duct tape around each ankle. I think there's a good chance he's been, This kid has obviously he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
Okay. We need the police here now. Has he told you where his mom and dad are?
He just says he doesn't live around here.
Does he know his mom's name?
Ruby Franke is his mom's name.
Within minutes of the call, the EMTs and officers arrive.
The very first thing that kind of stood out to me the second we got on scene was that first look at him. It just hit that there was something wrong.
To the EMTs, the boy looks malnourished and has severe injuries. To protect his identity, we're calling him R. And what you're about to see may be unsettling.
He had duct tape wrapped around him, and underneath the duct tape was saran wrap wrapped around both of his legs, and on both the wrists were the same.
I don't think there's one emotion that you can use to describe this call. There was sadness. It was everywhere. It was heavy. It was felt by everybody around.
The poignant scene is unfolding in this quiet neighborhood with this stunning backdrop. And Sergeant Nick Tobler arrives on the scene, his body camera rolling.
We were watching EMTs tend to him, and he was wincing to any kind of pain when they lift his legs up.
And what does that indicate?
That he's been through a lot of pain.
He was very calm. He never cried. He was just stoic, like unwavered strength from this kid.
You could see the joints in his legs, they were abnormal. You could see malnutrition, just not enough food, not enough intake.
Officer Pikyevitz's body camera captures a telling conversation on how these wounds got there.
Who put the ropes on him? When I asked him how did he get the injuries, he told me that his mom and Jody said that they bound his arms and his feet to weights on the ground and restricting his movement. When I heard him say that, it hit me pretty hard. I had to excuse myself out of the ambulance.
Later, detectives learned that it wasn't just the ropes that bound him and caused those wounds. It was also handcuffs. And did he tell you how he escaped?
He told us later in interviews that he unlocked the handcuffs from his wrists and his ankles, and then he exited through the sliding glass door of the room.
And did he tell you about his motivation, his state of mind in that moment?
Just hungry. He was hungry and thirsty, and he saw an opportunity to leave.
While R is being treated, he tells officers that he has 2 siblings who he thinks are still back at the house.
We didn't know if another sibling was in the same state of condition or possibly even dead in the home.
There's 2 other kids there. We need to go do a security sweep of the house.
That house, police learn, doesn't belong to the boy's mother, but to someone named Jody Hildebrandt. And R's mother, Ruby, so far, is nowhere to be found.
184.
So we get there, we hop out of the vehicles, we get to the front door.
Police officers, open up!
She finally answered the door.
Jody, I need you to step out.
I have my attorney.
That's great. Step out of the house.
When she answered, she had a phone in her hand. Just have a seat right there for me.
Do you have a search warrant?
We'll explain it after this. We were able to enter Jody's house due to the exigent circumstances that surrounded us finding R.
For exigent circumstances, this is a life-saving effort.
The officers entered the home and began clearing the house.
Police officers, anybody home?
Looking for the other children.
Clear? Yep. Police, anybody home? Police officers.
Just over 10,000 square feet.
Take the hall, okay? You got it.
This home has multiple bedrooms, bathrooms, hallways,
Weight room?
almost like a compound.
We entered a room that had a bed in it with an attached bathroom and an attached closet. It was empty, like there was no clothes hanging up. None of the drawers were full. And in the middle of the floor...
Come in, my buddy. I am a police officer. Hey, you okay? Is this just you in here? I'm Sergeant Tobler. What's your name?
We at first thought it might have been a little boy sitting there cross-legged, just staring up at us.
You doing okay? You don't want to talk to me? That's okay.
What was the look on that child's face?
It looked scared. The child looked scared.
At the time, Sergeant Tobler called me, and I was in the hospital with R. So I began asking R, hey, do you have a little brother? He said, no, I have a younger sister there, 9-year-old, and he said she had a shaved head and she had brown hair. I said, when's the last time you saw her? And he said, it's been over a month.
They were in the same home, and they didn't see each other for a month.
Yeah. At that moment, we kind of connected the dots that was who Sergeant Tobler was sitting with in the closet.
It's okay if I just sit here with you. We don't have to say anything. If you don't want to.
Did she say anything about her being afraid of you?
Yeah, she just kept asking, where's Jody at? Would Jody be okay if they came in? She was concerned what Jody would think.
Did she mention her mom at all?
No, she did not.
I get if you're scared. I would be too. You're in no way in any trouble. I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to make sure you're okay.
For over 2 hours, Tobler has been sitting with E. That's how we'll refer to her, trying to make her more comfortable with his presence. Yet E remains motionless and afraid. But one suggestion gets her attention.
I said, I bet you like pizza. And she nodded her head.
She ate the whole thing, so they ordered another one. She ate half of a large pizza as well, along with a shake.
And what does that tell you about how hungry she was?
Food deprived, hungry, just like R was at the time.
While E remains in the closet, officers are still searching for a possible second child in the home.
I've got a room back here.
They don't find that child, but they do come upon a large safe room. What do they find?
We found rope, we found handcuffs. It was really set up like a private room.
More than 4 hours after police make entry into Jody's home, Eve finally agrees to leave the closet. While E is led to the ambulance, Jody Hildebrand is placed in a secure room in the house. That's when the children's mother, Ruby Franke, arrives at the home.
Okay, just place your hand on your back, please.
Immediately, we're shocked she's here.
And just who is Ruby Franke? It turns out she's wildly famous for all the wrong reasons. It's been several hours since police first got a call that young children may be in grave danger at the home of someone named Jody Hildebrand in Ivins, Utah. But the children aren't Jody's. Their mother is Ruby Franke, who prosecutors say had been hundreds of miles away as the reality of her kids' horror is being uncovered.
Ruby is in a panic and driving down from northern Utah.
We got information that she showed up at the police department. So she spoke with our secretary and said, I was told my kids are here. And our secretary said, no, they're not. And she frantically took off. And while we're serving the search warrant of the home in Ivins, Ruby Franke shows up.
And so when she showed up, she was immediately detained.
She's sitting in there for hours.
Yes.
While the search is being done.
Correct. So she came down here looking for her two children, but never really digs into that. Like, tell me where my kids are at. Are they okay? It's just none of that. It's just quiet and silence.
Officers spend nearly 6 hours searching Jody's home that day and collect multiple bags of evidence.
Due to the totality of the circumstances, the evidence that we have found, there was enough to charge these two with aggravated child abuse.
Detective Bate came into the room and informed Jody that we were detaining her. And that's when she was handcuffed.
Yeah, we'll make sure everything's locked up for you, right?
Ruby, when I placed her in handcuffs, very quiet.
Hey, just place your hand on your back for me. Perfect. Alright, you're just gonna
Walk with Officer Hines.
This next one right here.
Sure, go ahead and have a seat.
Once we transported her back, that's when I held an interview with Ruby Franke.
At one point, you describe her sitting and staring off.
Yeah.
Almost like in a trance?
She was just really, seemed like she was looking through me. I would ask her a question and she'd give me like 3 long blinks. Do you want to talk to me about where you live or how many kids you have? So we just spoke with your husband and he said you guys have 6 kids. Are those all together? Are those all your kids? I'm like, don't know what to do with that. I don't know if you're telling me something. It's like Morse code. I can wait all day. So it's up to you if you want to talk to us about what's going on. I'll wait till I have a lawyer. So that's where it ended.
The Ruby Franke in that interrogation room is tight-lipped and stone-faced. It's a stark contrast with the animated and highly vocal mommy vlogger that fans saw on her popular YouTube channel, 8 Passengers.
You guys, none of my kids had training wheels.
In 2015, Ruby Franke monetizes her persona as mother and good Mormon housewife.
Let's have a prayer.
And she starts this vlog called 8 Passengers.
And she was chronicling her life with her 6 children and her husband Kevin in Utah.
There's Sherry and Chad, the 2 oldest children who are now adults. Then there are 2 teenage girls in the middle, and the 2 youngest children, E and R.
Ruby would post sort of the standard family vlog style of videos, but it did seem like from right off the bat, discipline was kind of a focus.
You're still gonna have the consequence of not having your nails done for a month.
There's the natural, I suppose, challenges the kids are facing or that the parents are facing.
You're going to have to selectively neglect something. And sometimes I have to neglect the kids because Kevin needs attention.
They seemed real and relatable and also vulnerable as parents.
She had made a name for herself as a Mormon mom influencer, which is a very particular brand.
This is the last time we're going to have family prayer in this home.
The official name of the church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And the church has always embraced technology as a way of spreading the message, whether it be radio or television, or now the internet and social media.
Beyond spreading the message,
all right, you guys, we're going to go check out another church. I'm really, really excited.
Mommy vlogging or momfluencers can be big business.
It's a way for them to potentially support their family's income, which is typically not that possible when you have a lot of kids and you're encouraged to stay home.
It allowed church members to project into the world this image that the church had been teaching for many decades, but now you could do it on social media.
Very quickly, 8 Passengers had millions of viewers for almost all of their videos.
But in 2022, Ruby abandoned her popular vlog and joined forces with Jody Hildebrand, a therapist who was also the Franke's marriage counselor. Together, Ruby and Jody became the face of Jody's online life coaching business called Connections.
Welcome to Connections. I'm Jody Hildebrand.
And I'm Ruby Franke. We want to have relationships where we feel close and where there's love. But as we all know, what's been packaged and sold on social media isn't necessarily what's happening in real life. 2 young children who at first seemed so loved in those early videos somehow ended up starved and abused.
I was not prepared for what I saw. When I saw the injuries, it was very alarming. Children don't belong in the hospital.
But while Ruby's 2 youngest children are at the hospital, getting the medical attention they so badly need, the question now is,
I'm understanding that children can be full of evil and what that takes to fight it.
Then Kevin is heard on the call giving an update on their youngest children.
They're going to be in the hospital for 3 days.
So weird. It's just not necessary. They're trying to exaggerate this.
But despite hearing some of the realities of the situation she's in, Ruby isn't convinced she's in trouble.
Maybe in 10 days I'll get out of this. Satan has taken everything away from me that I love. And I'm a good woman. I don't do naughty things. I'm a really good girl.
Before Jody Hildebrandt entered the Frankies' lives, and before Kevin, Sherry, and Chad moved out, there had been signs that the wheels were coming off the 8 passengers' well-presented and tight-knit family.
My bedroom was taken away for 7 months, and then you give it back like a couple of weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that. You've been sleeping on a beanbag.
But sleeping on a beanbag is not over.
LDS kids are raised with the sense of being obedient, that there are morals, that there are standards that they should follow, that if you follow those standards, their life will be happier, you'll be safer. But church leaders have been consistent and unequivocal in recent years in terms of condemning abuse of any kind.
There was an outcry after viewers of 8 passengers became worried when Ruby posted about her youngest daughter forgetting her school lunch.
I just got a text message from teacher, and she said that did not pack a lunch today. She's just going to need to be hungry.
Viewers elevate their concerns, and in May of 2020, a Change.org petition with about 18,000 signatures circulates, urging Child Protective Services to investigate the Frankies. As the online chatter grows louder and news of the Change.org petition gets out, criticism of Ruby escalates and becomes more aggressive, she claims.
Ruby and Kevin Franke were getting death threats. They had someone completely hooded go up to their door and leave a note with a threatening message. You start to see the family distancing themselves from the video lens. It went from multiple videos a day to tampering off, and you only saw one, every couple of weeks.
By 2023, the 8 passengers YouTube channel had all but disappeared. But not before things would get even darker for the Franke family and for the woman who would soon be seen as the wedge driving them apart. As police dive deeper into the tangled web of family dysfunction within the Franke family,
police officers, open up!
It becomes clear to investigators that problems really began when Jody Hildebrandt, the therapist who ran the online life coaching business Connections, entered the picture.
Welcome to the Empowering Joy class. I'm Jody Hildebrandt.
But just who is Jody Hildebrandt?
Jody Hildebrandt was a licensed therapist who worked mostly with Mormon couples and families.
Her primary clientele was from 12 Steps, Alcoholics Anonymous, you have Sex Addiction Anonymous. She had a great reputation.
Jody ran her own practice in the Salt Lake City area, and according to former clients, many of her referrals came from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
So I was seeing Jody because my former husband and I had very severe marital issues, and I told him that I wouldn't stay with him unless we could seek counseling.
Stephanie Jones is a former patient of Jody Hildebrandt. She says at first, Jody's counseling sessions were going well.
The first time we met with Jody, she seemed very kind and understanding and very charismatic. I thought that Jody was going to solve everything and we were going to have a happy marriage. As I met with her longer, then it became clear that there were certain things I couldn't say to her if it didn't fall in line with what she taught.
Stephanie says that things really took a dark turn during Jody's group counseling sessions.
In the group sessions, it was like a public shaming room. So you had to write down if you kept your commitments to yourself, things like that. And if your numbers were not good enough, then she would rake you over the coals.
Others in Jody's group say they also felt uneasy.
We'd be in group sessions and she would call out people like this is distortion or cut them off and belittle them. And she would emasculate men in a massive way.
There were complaints from other men in the group sessions as well. Although pornography addiction is not recognized as a disorder by the American Psychiatric Association, a lot of clients sought Jody out for that. But some, like former patient Adam Steed, an ex-member of the church, say she had extreme views on how to treat porn addiction.
Back then I used to say I had a porn problem.
Because in Mormonism, if you've ever looked at pornography in your life, you have a porn problem. Like ever, even if it was for 10 seconds. And Jody figured out how to exploit that.
With Jody, you look at it one time and you're an addict. Oh, your husband looked at porn? Have him sleep on the couch downstairs. He masturbates, couch. Does it more than once, he should move out. Most women in my group were separated from their husbands. Or they were at least sleeping in separate bedrooms.
And in the case of Adam Steed, he says Jody ruined his marriage and his reputation, telling lies about him.
So it's group therapy. When does it turn?
What she did is she took our wives and started lying to them by telling them that we were confessing to all sorts of crazy sexual things in the guys group. Jody Hildebrandt called me a child pedophile, a child rapist.
Adam's marriage eventually ended. Through her attorney, Adam's ex-wife declined to comment. Eventually, he reported Jody Hildebrandt to the state of Utah for acting unethically as a counselor.
Jody was subpoenaed by Adam Steed and she was shocked. The context of it was that she had reached out to Brigham Young University and told them about what she had seen in her clinical office. It didn't ring true at all that she had done this. Because there's such strong ethical guidelines as a therapist that you never would disclose to any outside entity.
In 2012, Utah's Division of Professional Licensing, or DOPL, put Jody's counseling license on an 18-month probation, finding she'd been sharing confidential information about Adam with the Mormon Church and Brigham Young University. Information which Adam says got him expelled from his college and the church in 2009. We reached out to BYU, but citing federal privacy laws, they said they could not comment. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints tells us Jody was removed from a community resource list of therapists in 2012.
When her license was put on probation, what was your reaction?
I was surprised they didn't revoke her license.
But Hildebrandt's career survives the incident, and she actually expands her brand, launching that online life coaching program, Connections.
Welcome to Connections. I'm Jody Hildebrandt. So glad you're with us. Connections is the solution.
In 2020, that's when Ruby Franke hires Jody as a marriage counselor and later starts appearing in Connections videos and podcasts. The women post dozens of videos on Connections together as they appear to form a bond, both professionally and personally. In fact, at one point, Jody had a crisis of her own in her home. And while Kevin was initially hesitant, he was convinced by Ruby to help Jody out.
Jody began to live in the home with them. And at that point, that's kind of when Kevin says there was a shift in their marriage because Jody really integrated herself and she would go on their anniversary dinners. She would just be there.
Does that strike you as odd?
Yes.
Because how many marriage counselors move in with the couple?
I don't know of any, let alone go on their anniversary dinner.
And according to investigators, all this driving a wedge between Ruby and her husband, Kevin.
Jody began to say that Kevin was dealing with lust issues and addictions, and for that, he needed to be separate from Ruby.
You see a complete disintegration of the Franke family. Kevin Franke has left. He has moved out. She leaves her 2 teen girls back in the Springville home, and she essentially moves in with the family therapist, taking her 2 youngest children with her in Ivins, Utah.
Investigators say it was this bizarre living situation that police are trying to unravel as they process this house of horrors. But so many questions remain. What would possess a mother to subject her kids to this kind of abuse? Could the clues lie in a journal police have uncovered? A journal belonging to Ruby Franke. But nothing would read quite as ominously as a message written with rocks by her abused son.
Where he had been sleeping outside, he had left in rocks a statement. We were shocked.
When we come back. Everybody thinks they know what happened in the case of Ruby Franke. But what we
thought we know was just the tip of the iceberg.
Clear. Police, anybody home?
Well, what goes through your mind when you see this?
I mean, handcuffs clearly can be a torture device.
We knew 14, almost 15 years ago that she's already done this to me.
Jody? I need you to step out.
Jody is an incredibly powerful, terrifying woman.
Welcome to Connections. Glad you're with us. I'm Jody Hildebrandt.
And I'm Ruby Franke.
Both Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrandt convinced these children that they had done atrocious acts.
When you're told you're a terrible person, you start to believe it.
Ruby seems to express zero sympathy for what she's putting her children through.
It was unlike anything that we've ever seen.
It's all about power. It's all about control.
Dehumanizing.
Dehumanizing.
We have zero reason to believe that this abuse would have stopped short of death. Like, zero.
The parenting influencer charged with child abuse.
Facing child abuse charges today in Utah.
We're used to seeing mom Ruby Franke as an influencer, but we're now seeing her as an inmate. Ruby Franke is set to appear in court today.
So September 8th, 2023, a little more than a week after she's been arrested, we see Ruby Franke for the first time, not as a mom influencer, but she appears publicly in court.
Miss Franke, can you hear me?
Yes.
Jody Nan Hildebrandt?
Yes.
While Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrandt are facing their first court appearances, investigators are still trying to learn what exactly happened in Jody's home.
Police officers, open up!
Where Ruby's 9 and 12-year-old children, who we're calling E and R, were staying. Jody Hildebrandt's house is just over there, at the base of this red rock paradise, ironically called Hellhole Canyon. Fitting, perhaps, given the unimaginable abuse that investigators are uncovering. Everybody thinks they know what happened in the case of Ruby Franke, but you're about to release a bunch of evidence that shows what we thought we know was just the tip of the iceberg.
It blew my mind when I saw it. This isn't just a case of a social media influencer like pushing boundaries. The abuse is much worse than people are aware of.
When we were able to interview the kids for the second time, that's when R shared his side of the story of what happened inside the home. How he had to stand in the sun for hours a day and sleep outside. How he was deprived of food and water. How he was forced to carry boxes up and down the stairs all day. Him and E had to go to the cemetery barefoot and pick up weeds out in the heat.
In a video taken by a bystander and later provided to police, you can see R in that cemetery. It gets to be 110 degrees.
The ground at that point would be hotter than the air, and his feet had blisters on them. His arms burned.
R told you that he had had a birthday that year.
Mm-hmm.
What was he made to do on his birthday?
He said that on his birthday he had to stand outside all day.
In the baking heat?
Yes.
What about E?
He was more reserved. She wouldn't share much. She didn't go into much detail.
It took a while before E finally opened up. And at one point she described how that she was forced to steal water. Ruby and Jody would watch her in the shower. When she brushed her teeth, they would turn off the water because that's when she would steal water. Normally, kids outgrow their clothes. She had lost so much weight that she had actually, the clothes were too big to fit on her.
So in R's interview, he disclosed that there was a set of silver handcuffs used and a set of black handcuffs used. So when we found these items, it really corroborated R's story.
Well, what goes through your mind when you see this?
I'll never look at handcuffs the same again because we've seen the injuries that these caused.
The prosecutor showed us photographs of the deep wounds from the handcuffs, what he describes as torture. We want to warn you, the image you're about to see is graphic.
And then you're starting to see the worst injuries, the ones that just really hit you. This is like injury on top of injury. This was happening for weeks.
In Jody Hildebrandt's house, not just handcuffs, but even a trampoline used in extreme heat could be a torture device.
R, in his interview, disclosed that he was forced to jump on a trampoline for 8 to 10 hours a day out in the sun. We went back to the scene, and on the trampoline, there was the calcite buildup from him just sweating on that trampoline.
It confirms his story of unspeakable torture.
Yeah. So right here you're seeing R as he approaches the neighbor's home on the day that he ran away. And you can see how small and how visible his bones are, even on his legs.
This is R's back, and you can see both how skinny he is in his arms and how far out his shoulder blades stick.
And these are obvious signs of malnutrition, of starvation. Yeah. When you think of R and that escape, how much courage did that take?
This whole thing came to light because of R. And for him to go to neighbor after neighbor, finding no one home, then finding the third one, someone answered the door to tell him, hey, I need help.
What's going on, son? Have a seat there. I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door. He's hungry and he's thirsty.
That shows how brave he is. He's the hero in this whole thing.
And there's the obvious question, were there signs along the way? Anything that could have stopped this from happening? In the Franke family, remember, the oldest child, Sherry, had tried to raise the alarm that something was amiss with that welfare check.
My 4 younger siblings are living in Springville, and so I was curious if someone could go check on them.
But there was another warning. This one about Jody, years earlier, from someone inside her family who's ready to share their story now.
We knew 14, almost 15 years ago that she's already done this to me.
When I began covering this story, I went to Seattle to meet 30-year-old Jessie Hildebrandt, who's a tattoo artist there. Who is Jody Hildebrandt to you?
Jody is my dad's sister, so she's my aunt.
Jessie, who uses they/them pronouns, is also an accomplished musician. Jessie says their experience with Jody echoes that of Ruby Franke's 2 youngest children.
Jody is an incredibly powerful, terrifying woman. For the longest time, I never thought about going forward because I've had almost 15 years of people telling me to get over it, to move on, stop being a victim. I had finally the validation of what happened and the validation of my story.
In 2009, Jessie was a teenager living in California with their parents and 3 siblings.
I grew up in a very traditional Mormon household. Dad is the provider, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. Very good at homemaking, cookies and homemade meals. When I was growing up, I very much believed in the church. I was devout, but I also was very curious, and so I wasn't afraid of asking questions. I had a lot of frustration. I was so angsty and angry. I started running away. I had a lot of interpersonal relationship issues with my dad and my mother, and that goes to the Mormon culture at large of this stay sweet, never rocking the boat, never challenging authority.
Jessie describes himself as being a rebellious teenager, in part because of the upbringing, this Mormon upbringing where, makeup and caffeine and going out are all no-nos.
A major turning point in their life, Jessie says, was during a trip to their grandparents' 50th anniversary party in Utah. Jessie was 15.
I got into a fight with my mom over like silly teenager things. She wanted me to do the dishes. I didn't want to do the dishes. She took my phone. Just, normal, angry, teenage stuff. And I went downstairs to my aunt's basement and fell asleep. Woke up to a knock on the door. It was Jody and my grandma and grandpa, and to tell me that my family had left and that I wasn't going with them. And that my life, as I knew it, was about to change.
Jesse's parents leave their teenager with Jody.
I'm shaking and crying, and I don't know how to process this. But first she stripped me of identity. So I had to cut all my hair off. I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. I wasn't allowed to wear the clothes that I had. I was not allowed to go to school. She would lock me in this room and write out my sins on a paper. She would have me kneel on the floor on my hands and knees and beg for forgiveness. Jody uses people's spirituality and belief in God against them. She shames people if they question her.
When you're told by the one person in your life, because everybody else has been thrown out, that you're a terrible person and that you deserve all the bad things that are happening to you, you start to believe it.
Jody was convinced that I had had abortions, that I was a sex addict. I wasn't allowed to use tampons because she was convinced I was masturbating with them. And at that point in my life, I didn't even know what that meant. I wasn't allowed to be alone in the restroom. I had to keep the door open.
And who's monitoring?
Jody.
We spoke to a family member who said they saw you with duct tape on your face.
Yeah. She duct taped me. I wasn't allowed to speak to anyone.
What, in theory, was the justification for the duct tape?
The duct tape was, in her words, an external reminder to me that I'm a liar. And her favorite phrase, which even saying this is just, it hurts, is a masterful manipulator. So even if I wasn't duct taped, if I was at a church function and someone came up and spoke to me directly, I had to just stare at them. But things got even worse. She made me sleep outside in the snow, in a sleeping bag. I started fantasizing about jumping off her balcony, about breaking my legs, about stabbing myself, about anything I could do that would just give me some escape.
After trying to run away a couple of times, Jessie says it only intensified Jody's punishments.
She ripped me off the love seat by my hair, blindfolded me, threw me in the car, tied my feet and my hands.
What, in theory, was the justification for what you say is being blindfolded and bound in the back of a car?
The delusion that she has that this is like saving me, and her belief that God is literally working through her. It's all about power. It's all about control.
In 2010, Jessie Hildebrandt goes to the police and says that there is extreme mental abuse.
In the police report, Jessie describes Jody's treatment of them and requested a referral to a safe house, which the police provided.
They ask for help. They ask for police to do something. The report is closed.
We contacted American Fork Police, who said they can only comment on what is in the police report. The breaking point, Jessie says, came after they'd lived with Jody for nearly a year.
So during the week, I would go to work with her, and because I wasn't in school.
At the time, Jody had a counseling practice in the Salt Lake City area.
She would put me in this little room off the side of her office, and I would be in there up to 12 hours a day.
And one day I just walked in there, and this teenage girl was sitting there and just said to Jody, gosh, what is that teenager doing in there? I think this is the third day.
For hours on it?
Yeah, and Jody got very, I would say, agitated and said, don't talk to her. All I thought was, that's odd.
One of her colleagues had found this jacket, and it was like a reversible windbreaker raincoat.
It was cold in the basement.
And so you put that coat in there knowing she was cold?
Yeah.
And I had this like moment where I was like, if I don't leave now, I'm never getting out. And I grabbed that jacket and I literally just started running.
Jessie says they ended up staying in a homeless shelter and slowly began the process of healing. After news broke of Jody and Ruby's arrests, Jesse reached out to investigators in Utah who say Jesse's story mirrored Jody's treatment of Ruby Franke's two youngest kids. Why was Jesse's story important to this case as a prosecutor?
All of the things that Jody did to Jesse, which I totally believe Jesse on, were the things that happened early on in the abuse last summer in our community to R&E.
So it shows a pattern of behavior.
And of control, the behavior, the brainwashing, the manipulation.
In hindsight, had Jesse's story been believed, could this have been avoided?
Had Jesse's story been believed, and people had known about it. I'm not an expert on those standards. Jody's license to practice as a therapist shouldn't have remained in place, and we all would have been better off.
But now, nearly 15 years after Jesse's escape, it's one of Ruby's children who's run away too, and he's left behind a message for everyone to see.
Where he'd been sleeping outside, he had left in rocks a statement.
From the very beginning of Mormonism, Latter-day Saints were encouraged to keep journals. There's a kind of sacred duty in recording your life. The journaling is an act of gratitude to God. It's an act of devotion.
Ruby Franke was among those practicing that sacred duty. But according to prosecutors, her journal was no list of ordinary or mundane life events. Instead, it would be a game changer for the investigation. Let's talk about Ruby's journal. How was it discovered?
When we did the second search warrant of the home, we found a blue folder, and that was in the bedroom.
It's a sheaf of papers documenting the summer day by day. At the start of the journal, it's R's 12th birthday. She writes, I told R that he emulates a snake. He slithers and sneaks around. If he wants to emulate the Savior, he needs to be 100% obedient with exactness. 7/11/23, Tuesday. R was told to stand in the sun with his sun hat. He is defiant. I come back with a cactus poker. When I poke his back to get in the sun, R doesn't even flinch.
He had been through so much pain, you could just see his pain tolerance was,
through the
roof.
On 7/14/23, E refuses to work, screams, has hair shaved off.
It's the taking away their identity.
Dehumanizing. In the journal, Ruby describes her children, R and E, with words like demon, devil, possessed, insisting that they must repent.
Both Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrand convinced these children that they had done atrocious acts and that this repentance process required them to do severe acts of punishment.
She clearly feels like her children had not only been possessed by evil spirits, but were embracing that possession and celebrating that evilness inside of them. And so she clearly felt justified in doing anything.
Ruby seems to express zero sympathy for what she's putting her children through. When E was outside today, it was hot. She acted like she was dying. So pitiful.
There was no emotion there. There was a disconnect from, a typical mother and a child.
It's something to hear it from R. It's another to read Ruby's own account of it.
Yeah.
In her own words. That in itself must have been shocking.
It was just crazy. It was unlike anything that we've ever seen. All you can think at that moment is, holy, we've got them. This is clear intent, clear knowledge of the abuse. It is documented by Ruby herself.
She was not only justifying her behavior, but she believed that her behavior was acceptable behavior and that God was approving it. The twisted logic that's going on in her mind.
As for Jody Hildebrandt, she's referred to throughout the journal as G-Jo.
So it was my understanding that it was like Grandma Joe, like Jody, so G-Jo.
She says, G-Jo helped me intervene after work. I cut more off E's head. We doused her with water in the dog wash.
Yeah.
So G-Jo is implicated throughout the journal.
Yeah, it really shows that both of them were very involved with the corporal punishment and physical, emotional abuse.
By mid-July 2023, the abuse is so bad that R runs away in a first failed attempt. Ruby writes, at 2:45 a.m., I woke straight up out of bed. Straight up. I couldn't see R. He was gone.
Where he'd been sleeping outside, he had left in rocks a statement saying, jail, I will call when I get there. They told these kids that you have to repent first, and then you're going to jail. And so that's why he said, I'd much rather just go to jail now.
Ruby writes, oh God, oh Father, we need a miracle. We need your help now. Send the hosts of heaven.
She's praying her guts out and driving around in a panic, and they're all just terrified.
Ruby and Jody split up in separate cars to search for R. After 15 minutes of driving, Ruby finds him walking on the road, and she writes, I get out of the car. R is shocked to see me.
And at that point, that's when he started to become handcuffed and bound so that he wouldn't escape again.
If all this isn't upsetting enough, then Ruby reveals something else in her writings, a plan to leave the state with her kids and Jody in tow.
One of the things that terrifies me in that journal is how she talks about how important it is for them to move to a house on a larger property.
In Arizona.
In Arizona, on a ranch-style property.
Ruby writes, G-Jo has been looking for property and is feeling more imminent, the need to get these kids to open land. Pop, we will drop them like hot potatoes out in the desert, their new home. And why does that terrify you?
Because if that had happened, we have zero reason to believe that this abuse would have stopped short of death. Like, zero.
How bulletproof was this case as you were heading towards trial?
It's not that often that you have one of the two co-defendants cataloging their criminal acts that they're doing.
So as their case moves closer to trial, prosecutors are preparing what their evidence might be, including phone calls Jody's making from jail.
So now it's abusive to make a kid sleep on the floor. It's abusive. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You can't even raise your kids anymore.
Purgatory. In some religious traditions, it's a place between heaven and hell. But it's also the name of the jail where Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrandt are being held without bail, facing up to 6 charges of aggravated child abuse each.
This is a call from and paid for by Jody Hildebrandt, an inmate at Purgatory Correctional Facility. This call is subject to recording and monitoring.
We frequently monitor jailhouse calls on cases because a lot of people say stuff that you can use in trials. Jody gets in there and starts saying things like, you know, I don't know why I'm here.
I shouldn't be here. I haven't done anything wrong. I can't believe what I'm being accused of. I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it.
To, this must be part of God's bigger plan.
Like, what's a better example than to go to prison unjustly and then go teach the gospel?
To, like, it's these rotten kids' fault.
We didn't do that. Those pictures we did not do. He did that to himself, yes. If we put that on him and then he rubbed around and cut himself, yes. But we didn't do that.
So what does that tell you about her mindset?
It's troubling, at least. to hear someone justify the type of abuse that we know happened, and to continue to try to convince others that everything that she was doing was the right thing.
In the weeks following their arrests, Ruby and Jody claim innocence on the charges against them. And remember, when police first questioned Ruby's husband, Kevin, he stands by her.
What's going to happen with my wife? I love that wife. I trust her.
And just to be clear as day, Kevin initially was considered a suspect.
In that circumstance, he's going to be considered a suspect.
However, 2 weeks later, police call Kevin in for a second interview. And this time, instead of defending his wife, Kevin has a change of heart.
Every week was just hell, psychological hell, and Jody was running it. I can't describe to you what torture and hell it was to live an entire, it was more than a month really, in complete isolation, believing that I was like evil.
You going through that is going to be extremely helpful with because a lot of those are the same words that were used with them, and you're going to understand how they felt.
The main difference between that interview and the first interview is he now knows what his children had been subjected to. That his wife, Ruby, and Jody had done some terrible things. And at that point, his willingness to protect his wife and keep her from getting in further trouble was removed. He was more concerned about his children.
It became clear that he wasn't really a person of interest, and
he was off the hook pretty
quickly because there just wasn't any evidence. We had a journal saying everything that happened in the home over the summer, and it never said he was in the home.
Kevin is no longer on investigators' list of suspects. He's now reconciling with his two oldest and once estranged children, Sherry and Chad.
Any comments for today?
Not today, thanks. Well, probably shouldn't today, thanks.
And he's fighting to regain custody of his youngest four. Kevin also files for divorce from Ruby. Meanwhile, Ruby faces the possibility of spending Christmas in jail. Prosecutors monitoring her calls sense she's also starting to see things differently. Could Ruby be ready to flip?
This has been the strangest and the most miraculous intervention. It put everybody where they needed to be. It separated me from Jody, so I'm not hearing her. And I think just being gone and not hearing her has cleared a lot of things up for me.
By listening to the jailhouse calls, we were able to determine that Ruby Franke, that the more time that she was away from Jody Hildebrand, the more understanding that she had of the injuries to her own children, that she was able to express remorse, regret, and that she wanted to then help with the case.
She was willing to admit that what she did was awful and that she was going to plead to a pretty strict plea.
Miss Franke is now here.
But also, she was willing to testify against Jody.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
I really did feel like being arrested, like a rescue. Like I just felt so many angels around and it was like a relief.
Summer has turned to fall, has turned to winter, and prosecutors are learning that as the seasons have changed, Ruby's story might be changing too.
Miss Franke is now here.
It was our understanding that Ruby felt the right thing to do at that point was to accept responsibility for her own conduct, and that Jody should do the same. And if that meant for Ruby to testify against Jody Hildebrand, she would do that.
On December 18th, 2023, Ruby pleads guilty to 4 second-degree felony charges of aggravated child abuse. The remaining 2 charges are dropped.
Ms. Franke, how do you plead to count 1, aggravated child abuse?
Guilty.
To count 3, aggravated child abuse?
Guilty.
To count 5, aggravated child abuse?
Guilty.
And to count 6, aggravated child abuse?
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children. Guilty.
The stakes for Jody were higher because Ruby was now going to testify against her, and we were seriously looking at adding additional charges.
But that would not come to pass. On December 27th, 2023, Jody, knowing that her former friend and business partner was willing to testify against her, she also pleads guilty to the same 4 charges of aggravated child abuse.
Guilty.
The court therefore dismisses the remaining 2 counts.
What did you think when you heard that Jody was going to take a plea?
I was relieved because I didn't want to have to drag the victims through all of this.
Thank you. We'll be in recess.
The plea bargain was that we would drop 2 of the 6 charges, and they had to agree to plead to 4 counts, and that they would serve prison for each count, and that those counts would run consecutively, not concurrently.
With both women pleading to the same charges, the plea deal makes no distinction between the co-defendants' roles in the abuse. Although, in recognition of Ruby's cooperation in the case, prosecutors make one small concession regarding the terms of her parole.
Ruby's plea deal said that she would testify against Jody, and we would not go to the parole board arguing that she stay in prison longer.
So you wouldn't put the finger on the scale for her to stay in prison more?
No.
All rise.
I was led to believe that this world was an evil place, filled with church leaders who lie and lust, husbands who refuse to protect, and children who need abused. I stand before you today ready to take accountability to my babies, my 6 little chicks. They're a part of me. I was the mama duck who was consistently running you to safety. I can see now that I've been abused for years. I was in a deep undercurrent that led us to danger.
Jody's sentencing was decidedly different.
When Jody made a statement at the time of sentencing, she never once said she was taking responsibility for her conduct or that she did anything wrong.
Go ahead.
I sincerely love these children. I desire for them to heal physically and emotionally. My hope and prayer is that they will heal and move forward to have beautiful lives. I am willing to submit to what the state feels would be an appropriate amount of time served to make retribution.
Compared to Ruby, who had accepted at some level responsibility, I think the judge was concerned that Jody was not taking responsibility.
Ms. Hildebrandt, this circumstance is tragic. It's largely, of course, of your making. Adults are supposed to protect children. Adults with specialized training in particular are supposed to protect children. In this case, you terrorized children, and the results have been tragic. The court finds that it is appropriate that you serve a prison sentence.
The Utah Board of Pardons and Parole will determine how long they'll end up spending in prison. And from what we know of the level of felony that both Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrandt pled guilty to, they could get anywhere from 4 years in prison to 30 years.
What does justice look like in this case?
To me, justice in this case looks like them not coming out of prison until the child victims are adult and grown enough that they can handle them being out.
For Jody's niece, Jessie, the possibility their aunt could be released on parole before the 30-year maximum prison sentence seems like justice denied.
The sentencing is a joke, even if it is the law. It doesn't feel like closure at all. Because now, every time there's a parole hearing, I have to be there. Those children have to relive that trauma. I believe that she is a very dangerous, dangerous person. That she cannot be trusted with anyone, children and adults alike. I think Jody is exactly where she needs to be.
Scheduled train. While Jody's fate is beyond Jesse's control, that still hasn't stopped them from finding a way forward. You said that Jody stripped you of your identity. Yeah. Clearly you've regained your identity in some form or fashion. Who is Jesse Hildebrand today?
I'm a tattoo artist and a painter and a musician, and want to experience all the things that the world has to offer. If I could wake up tomorrow and never think about her, I mean, that would just be the greatest day of my life.
The question is, what does tomorrow look like for the Franke children?
What we see in this story, people can be given too much power. People can start to believe that they deserve that power.
Go and face that officer. Put your hand on top of your head, please.
In resolving this case, we wanted to make sure that both Jody Hildebrand and Ruby Franke would not be able to injure any other child.
I also hope that Ruby can be reformed and can come out and not be a bad influence on the kids. And then it should be 100% up to each of the victims individually whether they choose to have a relationship or not.
Through his attorney, Kevin Franke tells us, in hindsight, much like some of her other clients, it was Jody who falsely convinced him he had a problem with pornography. In January of 2024, Kevin Franke filed a restraining order to block the sale of Jody Hildebrand's house. In the filing, he's asking for restitution to pay for the ongoing psychological care of the kids. And what can you tell us about how R and E are doing now and what road lies ahead for them?
Last time we saw them, it's a 180. E and R, they look so much better. They've put on weight. They look healthy. They're happy. They're, back to their hobbies.
We're told E and R have been placed together in foster care. As for their siblings, the middle teens, ABC News reached out to the Department of Child and Family Services. Citing privacy policies, they told us they can't share any information.
Kevin does want custody of the kids. He has made inroads. He wants a relationship with his 4 minor children.
R is a hero of a lot of people in our office, and it gives us such great examples of someone who is just resilient against the awful things.
R was extremely brave. Not only did he save himself, but he saved E. And in E's own interview, she was grateful for R.
I see a little boy that saved himself, even though everyone around him should have had his back.
Jesse Hildebrand is 15 years ahead of R and E in the healing process and is able to gather strength after Jody has been found guilty and is behind bars.
If you go, I'll be here. Keep the light on for you, my dear.
I hope that the shocking nature of this story doesn't blind people to the commonality of this story. It's easy to distance ourselves from something that seems so shocking and feel like it has nothing to do with you or your community.
Treat your kids like angels. Treat them like you treat yourself. Kids need our help, helping them become good human beings, people that will be good parents in the future.
Baby, just stay.
We should note tonight that in Utah, the parole board actually determines the sentence while the inmate is serving time based on their behavior.
So both Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrandt could be eligible for parole as early as August 2027. That's our program for tonight. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
I'm David Muir from all of us here at 2020 and ABC News. Good night.
Many of us are on social media, but few take it this far.
Creating a fantasy world and playing a game of catfishing that leads to murder. 2020 starts right now.
If someone had let you see everything that had gone on Facebook and they're talking and saying nasty things about each other, would you ever have imagined that it would have wound up with 2 people dead in this house?
No, never would have.
I got a phone call telling me that she was gone. I just can't believe it. I was shocked.
This is the bedroom where Billy Clay was found.
Single shot.
Single shot in the face.
Through the back of the house. Right. And did they catch Billie Jean as well, totally asleep?
My impression was it looked like a hit.
Like a contract hit.
Right.
People thought there was a killer on the loose.
I'm sorry it happened. I mean, that's all I could tell you is they have been harassing the living crap.
What kinds of things were people saying about you?
Just I was a bad person. I was horrible, threatening to get hurt.
What started all this hatred?
I've had my wife threatened. My wife has been threatened. They've threatened to take me out, cut her head off.
All part of what prosecutors call the craziest, stupidest, deadliest catfishing scheme you have ever seen. This is Mountain City, a postage stamp hamlet nestled in the mountains in East Tennessee.
Mountain City is a 2x4 town. You know, it's 2 miles wide and 4 miles long.
A sign greeting visitors calls Mountain City a friendly hometown.
Johnson County is considered a very safe place. I was the assistant district attorney there for over 6 years, and there was only a handful of homicides, maybe one a year, if that.
You grew up with people and you're going to see them at the grocery store. You go to the gas station and you run into somebody you know. Everybody goes to the same church. It's the quintessential small town America.
Definitely a place where everybody knows everybody. Everybody's in everybody else's business.
Johnson County 911. I name was bad. Can you stay the line, please?
That call is coming from this house where Billy Payne lives with his fiancée, Billie Jean Hayworth. When 2 neighbors stop by, they discover unspeakable horror.
The back door's always unlocked, so he goes in, hollers, nobody answers. He thought it was strange that Billie Jean's car is here, Billy's truck is here, and nobody's answering. So he goes down the hallway and finds Bill on the bed.
Billy Payne is not moving. His face is bloodied.
I can't find the pulse. All I see is blood on his neck. Oh my God. Blood on his neck. Oh my God. It's okay. I'm trying to get calm.
They heard a noise in the second bedroom, which is farther down the hall from the first. They went back and they found the 7-month-old baby.
There's blood on the baby. There's blood on the baby.
We found Billie Jean laying on the floor, and the baby was there with her. She had her arms wrapped around him. He was laying there on the floor with her. The child was covered in blood.
I'm breathing okay and everything. I'll be honest with you, I don't know how long I've been here like this. The baby kind of, to me, as a parent, looks like maybe it's been upset crying for a while and probably cried till we can't cry no more.
Miraculously, the baby, Tyler, seen here in photos released by the Johnson County Sheriff's Office, has no physical injuries and appears to be unharmed. Sadly, the same can't be said for the 7-month-old's parents.
No, there's no pulse. I know there's no pulse on him. Okay, do you want to do CPR or anything? Yeah, there's no pulse. There's no pulse on either one of them. They're white. They're kids.
This was around 10:40 a.m. in the morning. That's whenever the first call had came in. Here I am, I'm driving down through here, and I'm thinking it is hard to believe that there is actually 2 people that's been murdered down here. Because it's just something that's very uncommon here.
If one thing happens there, the whole community knows about it. This situation of 2 people being murdered in their own home, murdered in their pajamas in the early morning hours, was a great shock. And nobody really knew what had happened.
This is where Billy Payne and Billie Jean were murdered in this house.
Law enforcement officers took me to the crime scene back in 2015. And you were the first on the scene because you live pretty close to here, right?
I live approximately a mile and a half down the road right below here.
Reese says they found no sign of break-in. That's because anyone could have walked right into the small house, just like the police did.
So they go to the back door. They just open it up, it's unlocked.
It's a sliding glass door, and they just slide it up and walk in.
This is the kind of place where people don't really lock their doors, I guess. They walked right in. Was there any sign of a scuffle, a fight, anything?
No sign of anything of that nature, no. Looked like Billy had just gotten out of the bed. That's where we found his body.
From what we understand,
Special Agent Scott Lott with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation takes me into the home where the young couple was killed.
this is the bedroom where Billy Clay was found.
Single shot.
Single shot in the face.
Bill, he also had slice marks across his neck and the front. It was like he was going from the left side over towards the right side, was how the slashes were. And it wasn't one, it was like multiple slashes. I left from there and went down to the next room, which was the baby's room. And I saw Billie Jean Hayworth lying on the floor, and I could tell that she had an injury above her right ear.
Like Billy, Billie Jean is shot once in the head. Police theorize Billy is killed first.
The bedroom should be right inside this window right here.
Yeah,
The first window.
Billy's bedroom was here, and
the child's room was the next.
So they walked through the back of the house.
Right.
And did they catch Billie Jean as well, totally asleep? Or was she...
No, Billie Jean wasn't asleep from what we gathered. She was holding the baby.
once the intruder came in, she jumped up and ran out with the baby.
Right.
To try to
get away.
Police think Billie Jean ran into the baby's nursery and tried to shield him from the attack.
So it didn't take much time to get from that room to this room to shoot.
No.
And this is 5 feet.
Right. I think it takes a cold-blooded person to shoot somebody holding a baby.
Was that the most shocking thing about this murder?
Yeah, when that information got out, people were disturbed about that. Small community like this.
You've been involved in police work, law enforcement for what, 30 years?
Almost 30 years.
You ever seen anything like this?
Never seen nothing like this.
Who could kill people in this way? It's a question that will ultimately uncover ugly family feuds, divide Mountain City, and have these small town cops looking to a possible CIA plot.
My impression after, the first week was it looked like a hit.
Like a contract hit.
Right.
She doesn't have a pulse, no breathing either. Do you know how long maybe they've been there? I don't know. They're cold, they're white.
It's a home invasion double murder that has a small Tennessee mountain town on edge and authorities scratching their heads.
When they first asked me if I knew anybody that would hurt them, nobody came to mind. Nothing hit me right off. I didn't know what had happened. And then they asked me if they had any enemies.
Most of the time, if we have a murder, it's usually somebody that they know or a family member or one of the friends that got upset. But this is one of those that we always call as like a whodunit murder.
The squad's coming. Can I hang up now, please?
The details are even more horrifying. 36-year-old Billy Payne is not only shot in the head, his throat is sliced. And 23-year-old mother Billie Jean is holding her 7-month-old son when she's killed. Pretty cold-blooded to shoot a woman holding her child, huh?
Yes, it is. Sure is. Especially with point blank. I mean, it's just right there.
Shook people up, huh?
It did. Sure did. People thought there was a killer on the loose.
Did you know the people who lived here?
Yes, I do. Very familiar with them. Know Billy and his sister from the time they were small.
Billy Payne's sister, Tracy, told me she is still struggling with losing her brother.
I was shocked, but I thought it wasn't true, you know. I don't know, it's like impossible. I still don't think it's true.
Everybody liked Billy. Billy was one of these type of people that was outgoing and was friends with everybody. He liked to get together with friends, go four-wheeling with your truck in the mountains, and, you know, do stuff like that. Go camping.
Billy worked at Parkdale Mills, a textile factory, as a machine operator.
Billie Jean Hayworth, who was a few years younger than Billy Payne, she started working at Parkdale, and that's where Billy Payne and Billie Jean met. They started dating.
He was a good person, fun-loving, outgoing, kind of person everybody want to be around. She likes swimming, all big outdoors. Ever since she was little.
The romance moves quickly. In no time at all, Billie Jean moves in with Billy and his father. And a short time later, she gives birth to baby Tyler.
She was so excited. He was her world. This glow she had about her when he came into the world was just unbelievable.
She told me the night before she got murdered, she was happy. Her son meant the world to her. And Bill did too. She said, "Sis, I'm in love." She finally found out what love really was. I got a phone call telling me that she was gone. Someone shot her. In my head, I just couldn't believe it. I was shocked. You just don't ever think of something like that happening to your baby sister.
It was one of the hardest days of my life. Nobody should have to go through finding out that their friends have been murdered.
So who would want to murder a young family like this? At this point, police are desperate for any clues. Were you able to glean very much forensic evidence from this scene?
There is very little. It is a very clean scene as far as, physical evidence goes.
So no prints, no shell casings, no DNA left behind?
Not that we found, no, sir.
It was because whenever the suspects entered the house, they didn't do anything else. They did not go through the drawers, the closets. The wallets were all left in their places. Some money was laying around. It was left just as it was. So nothing was taken from the residence.
Investigators at the scene don't find any shell casings, which leads them to believe that the murder weapon was a revolver. But they do find 2 bullets there.
Billie Jean was laying in the floor in a semi-fetal position. To me, it looked as if she was bending over to pick up her child from the bouncy seat and was shot at that point. I guess as the bullet landed in the bouncy seat. It was amazing. You would think that we would have to, look for the bullet in the room, either in a wall or something. But it was just laying right there. And the bullet was still in good shape.
A bullet recovered from Billy's pillow is also mostly intact. That bullet has an X carved into its tip. This is a technique that's used to craft what is sometimes called a poor man's hollow point. The idea is that the bullet would break apart upon impact and cause even more damage.
And you never found the murder weapon or the knife that apparently slit the throat?
Neither one. My impression after, the first week was it looked like a hit.
Like a contract hit?
Right. They either had some training or they were self-taught. We didn't know. We initially started questioning family and friends.
Billy's father tells investigators that when he leaves for work at about 5:30 that morning, Billy is still sleeping and Billie Jean is feeding the baby.
Bill Payne would always ride with a guy to work. And that morning, he went up and knocked on the door, but no one would come to the door. So he just figured that, he wasn't going to go to work, so he just left and went on to work. And that was sometime around maybe 6 o'clock or so.
Now police have isolated a half-hour window when they believe the murder happened, but they still need to find out who did it.
The first day, when we were talking to friends of the victims, someone had mentioned that there was some kind of altercation or grievance.
If someone had let you see everything that had gone on, defriending each other on Facebook and they're talking and saying nasty things about each other, would you ever have imagined that it would have wound up with 2 people dead in this house? No. In 2012, the small town of Mountain City is very online.
A lot of people know about everything that goes on here because of, Facebook.
Back in 2012, there was Facebook, but there was a now defunct website called Topics. Topics became a big deal in Johnson County.
Where people can go on there and make their own topic and have discussions, and it's usually confined to different areas. Around here, it's very popular.
One of the biggest users of Topics and other social media sites in Mountain City is a 30-year-old Janelle Potter, who will become a key player in this murder mystery. So, let's start off in the beginning. Where did you grow up?
Grew up in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania.
What was it like?
It was nice. Small town. Everyone pretty much know everybody.
They moved to Mountain City from Pennsylvania in the early 2000s. From all accounts, Janelle was someone who didn't really leave the house very much. She lived most of her life online. The Potter family was known pretty well in Johnson County as keeping to themselves and just being a little weird. They didn't really interact with a lot of people. They didn't work. It seemed very like a very paranoid family.
Janelle's father, Marvin, also goes by the name Buddy. Now, Buddy's a Vietnam vet who says he did covert missions for the CIA. His wife, Barbara, admits she doesn't exactly know what he did overseas. Was he ever in the CIA or attached to the CIA?
He said he was.
Is he allowed to talk about what he did?
No, never. I just saw him as a gentle giant.
Buddy's a gentle giant who's on disability. He suffers from debilitating back pain and periodically relies on oxygen tanks to breathe. But he still sees himself as the protector of this family.
My understanding of Janelle and why she was still living with her parents is that she had some learning disabilities that were diagnosed pretty early in her life.
Buddy and Barbara are protective, and they barely let their daughter out of their sight. What were the rules? What kind of rules were they?
Don't be out past, 12 o'clock at night. No smoking, no drinking, no partying, no drugs, stuff like that.
Tell me about Janelle.
Very naive, can make decisions sometimes that aren't quite right for her because she's young. She's young in her mind, more young than her age, I think,
Her parents had a lot of control over her. She was not allowed to use their computer unmonitored. She was not allowed to use her cell phone unmonitored.
She wasn't allowed to have friends over socially, to be around people in person without them getting in good with Buddy and Barbara beforehand. So this forced Janelle to seek out relationships online.
Janelle also suffers from chronic health issues, which keep her indoors most of the time. Janelle did have some interactions in real life, and these photos presented in court showed Janelle with new friends, Billy Payne and his sister Tracy.
I worked at the pharmacy in town, and they were coming in there and getting her medicine, and we felt sorry for Janelle because she was sheltered because she was sick.
So I got talking to my brother about these people that had come in. She gave me her phone number, and I started calling her.
Tell me about your relationship with Tracy.
It was a good. She was a good friend to me. I would go out with her to the mall, to her house a few times, out to eat. Took her son different places. We were okay.
What did you think of Bill?
He was nice.
Just nice? But Janelle says she's also being cyberbullied, and hateful, anonymous comments begin appearing on her Facebook page. Soon, this war of words explodes online between Janelle and Billie Jean Hayworth, who Janelle accuses of starting that online feud. What was her relationship like with Billie Jean?
Oh, she hated her.
From the get-go?
She'd call her all kinds of bad names.
Now, at one point, did they unfriend you on Facebook?
I think we did it to each other. I unfriended them, they unfriended me.
Who unfriended who first?
I did Bill first, and I think Billy did me. And I unfriended her.
But Janelle says the online venom keeps coming and escalates to physical threats. Janelle's mother, Barbara, intervenes.
I wrote, please, do not write these things. I begged them, please don't do this.
What kinds of things were people saying about you?
Just that I was a bad person. I was horrible. Threatened to get raped. Threatening to get hurt.
Must have been pretty scary.
Yes.
But why would people say this about you?
I don't know.
What started all this hatred?
I'm not sure.
And those are the exact same questions police want to ask the Potters the day after Janelle's Facebook friends turned foes are murdered.
The Potters, they lived right up here.
So this is the house.
This is the house.
And you told them this is a conversation, this is no search warrant.
Right. This is just something just to get some interviews, just to sit down and talk about what type of problems that they all had with each other.
Hey. Hey, Dad.
Unknown to the Potters, investigators record the interview.
What we're doing right now is investigating a double homicide. Very serious matter.
Everybody always points fingers at us for something. Well, no, there ain't nobody pointing their fingers.
Instead of talking about how tragic the murders were, instead of talking about, what an outrage it was, the Potter family, especially Janelle, just started trashing on Billy Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth.
They've been harassing me in my driveway on our property. And then yesterday morning when I got on Facebook is when I found out. And, I'm sorry it happened. That's all I can tell you is they have been harassing the living crap out of me.
Why would they be harassing you?
It came out to be a jealousy thing. They said I was too pretty.
Buddy and Barbara Potter definitely saw their daughter as a victim. They saw the Facebook posts, they saw the emails that were sent back and forth. They really thought that people were out to rape her, people were out to kill her.
You never put on the internet that you wished her, they were dead?
No.
They were in a car accident? Or something like that?
I'm not that mean. I just don't want to believe people. That's all I've ever asked.
What did you come away with?
I have nothing to do with it. Did not have anything to do with it at all.
And so were you really suspicious when you walked away from that house?
We were suspicious, yes.
Why are investigators suspicious? Because Janelle brings up another person who is involved in this online feud.
They were just cussing at me, but I stood my father with Jamie and my mom.
We had talked to some of the other people, and they had heard Jamie Curd had threatened to cut Billy Payne's throat.
As Mountain City investigators reporters are interviewing the Potters about an online feud with murder victims Billy Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth, they ask about a local man named Jamie Curd.
Jamie. He's just a friend. We've been friends for years. He's friend of our family. Yeah,
He's friend of all of us, too.
Jamie Curd was from Johnson County. Had lived there his whole life. He was a pretty solitary guy, kept to himself.
Every time you see him, he's always wearing sunglasses. He says that the sun always bothers his eyes.
Jamie Curd was Billy's second cousin. Jamie had grown up with Billy. They were more like brothers and cousins.
Jamie, like Billy Payne and Billie Jean, worked at Parkdale Mills, and like Billy, he's brought into Janelle's orbit thanks to Tracy, who set the shy Janelle up with her cousin.
So why did you think to set up Jamie and Janelle?
Well, Jamie didn't have a girlfriend, and she really didn't have a boyfriend, so that's the only two. I mean, they didn't look like they'd go together by no means.
Why not?
Well, Jamie was sort of rough looking, greasy, and she was neat, so.
Jamie also moonlights fixing home computers around town.
The Potters used Jamie as a person to come and fix their computers whenever something was wrong, which would give Janelle a reason to be able to see Jamie.
And when Jamie was there, Janelle would be allowed to go into the computer room and talk to Jamie and be around Jamie.
So Jamie and Janelle got closer and closer.
But the Potters didn't want Janelle dating, and they certainly didn't want Janelle dating Jamie.
Janelle's mom and dad did not approve of Jamie. So Jamie was in love with her. So Jamie had purchased her a cell phone, and he would come here, bring it, and hide it in the bushes, and she would come and get it.
They started talking some. I believe that they would text message and instant message back and forth. They used email frequently. This undercover relationship between Jamie Curd and Janelle just kept growing and growing.
You and Jamie got pretty serious at one point.
Yes.
How often would you talk?
Every day.
For long periods?
For an hour, 2 hours at a time.
Wow. What would you talk about?
Our day, I don't know, he would tell me about his life. I would tell him about mine.
In typo-filled messages, Janelle tells Jamie, "You will always be in my life. I will always love you, and you're not just a part of me, you are all of me." Janelle even signs the message, "Your wife."
But when police ask Janelle about her relationship with Jamie, she lies.
Jamie sound like your boyfriend?
No, he's just really different.
Does he want to be your boyfriend?
Not that I know of. I'm just like a really good friend to him.
But police have evidence that shows that's not true.
We located photographs and a cell phone, and the photographs show them kissing at one point.
What'd you think of Jamie?
I'm nice to everybody. He told me how he worked on computers. He could build them from the bottom up.
He did more than work on your computer. He worked on your daughter, too.
Yeah, and I didn't know that for a long time, that he was interested in her or vice versa. It was secret.
Police also know that Jamie got dragged into this online feud, and his feelings for Janelle pit Jamie against his own cousin.
Janelle convinced Jamie that Billie Jean Hayworth and Billy Payne were targeting Janelle and sending her death threats, threatened to rape her, threatened to kill her. He started having problems with Billy Payne at work.
They had got into an argument down there, and some of the people had heard Jamie say something about slicing his throat. Billy's throat had been slashed, so yes, that's the reason that we brought Jamie Curd in. We just asked him, "Hey, would you take a polygraph?" And sure enough, he said that he would. That didn't go very well. Jamie is more involved with Janelle than what he was letting on to us. So that's whenever Agent Locke and Agent Hannah basically confronted him about the deception of some of the answers of the questions.
Jamie, of those 11 questions, which ones do you think you had the most reaction?
You can tell he's nervous. We confront him with the results of the polygraph. You can tell that he is apprehensive about talking.
I think you in there. I will take care of the situation. I will take care of people messing with the channel. People ain't gonna mess with my girl no more. She's not my girl. You may say that out loud, but you know in your heart it's different.
We sort of, ask him the same questions, what's your all's relationship? What's yours and Janelle's relationship? And, he kept on saying they were friends.
Did you make a statement at work? Did you go cut his throat? You made that statement. I know you did.
But eventually, Jamie changes his tune and he starts singing.
Jamie finally admitted that he went to the house.
Buddy? I'm sorry? Let's talk about it.
Jamie said that he was involved in it. He didn't do much, but he had told us that Buddy had been the one to have shot the two people. And he said something about on the lines that, he was the one that did the cutting of the neck.
Jamie was formally charged on the 7th of February. We put him back in the cell. He wasn't going anywhere.
Now that Jamie's on the hook, he agrees to help reel in his alleged partner in the double murder, Janelle's father, Marvin Buddy Potter.
We asked Jamie if he made a phone call to Marvin. If Marvin would admit to anything during that phone call. He said, I think he might.
Well, they're hurting fingers. Oh,
It's time to mourn in Mountain City, Tennessee. Billy Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth are laid to rest. The murdered couple survived only by their infant son.
I'm just as shocked today over my friends Bill and Billie Jean losing her life over someone who created her own hell.
Days later, Jamie Curd confesses and IDs the killer as Buddy Potter. Investigators then have Curd call Potter, hoping he'll incriminate himself.
Everything go on. Well, they're hurting fingers. Oh, gee, Christmas. You got rid of everything as fulfilled, didn't you? Okay. That makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
We never did really find the weapon that was used to kill Billy Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth. We took Buddy Potter's statement that he took care of it to mean that he'd gotten rid of the murder weapons.
With Jamie locked up, it's back to the Potter house. But this time, Buddy's not so welcoming to investigators.
We knew he had a weapon. And at one point we thought he made a gesture to us.
What kind of gesture?
Just like he's going to do like this, and we grabbed his arm.
My father hugged on us and treated us like we were angels. He was a very protective father, and at all costs, he was going to protect his wife and daughter.
Down at the sheriff's office, Buddy, who's in jeans, a red sweatshirt, and handcuffs, settles into an easy chair for some hard talk with that pair of TBI agents.
You know why you're here, right? Yeah, I'm assuming. Okay, why do you think? That somebody's told you I'm the one who killed somebody.
But Buddy Potter is no Jamie Curd.
Here's the thing. Mike and I, we've been investigating this case. We don't think you killed him. We know you killed him. Okay, that's it. Wait a second. And that's not just a guess. It's not just a gut feeling. It's a no. Okay, we know. That's fine. I didn't kill him. I did not kill Billy Payne. I'm not going to admit something I didn't do.
He denied everything. And we impressed him.
Come hardest to it. Take care of the family before you. I'm protecting my family to start with, but I did not do this. Tell me what happened. I don't know.
The agents repeatedly assure Buddy they understand how he must have felt.
I believe you are sick and tired of the most precious person in your life being attacked and harassed constantly. I know that. Okay? Ever since all this crap started, I've had my life threatened. My wife has been threatened. They've threatened to take me now, cut her head off.
Finally, at one point, he starts to say, when people are threatening your daughter's life.
When you hear people plotting to take you, catch your daughter, and arrest her, and murder her. They want to rape her because she's a virgin.
Investigators are getting the sense that Buddy might be ready at last to confess. Just not to them. Special Agent Lott has an idea.
I made the suggestion. Buddy, would you like to call Barbara and tell her first before you tell us? And he said, yes. So we let him make a phone call to Barbara.
Barbara.
Yeah.
Before you find out from somebody else, I want you to know I was involved in it. I did it. Some of it.
I don't understand.
Because of what all they've been trying to do to you and you now, I just wanted to tell you first.
He told Barbara, I did it. And that's as close to a confession as we got from him.
Her husband confessed to it.
Yeah, but there's questions about that.
So why would he admit to it? Why would he confess?
When they took him, they took no oxygen. They took no medication. And they interviewed him for hours. When his oxygen gets low, he says things that don't make sense or are incorrect.
Authorities beg to differ, saying even without his oxygen tank and medication, Potter was lucid and understood the questions. Now the question becomes, who convinced Buddy Potter his family was in danger?
Why would your father go and shoot those two people?
I don't know.
No idea.
No idea.
You said that your father was always protective of you.
Yes, but I don't think he would kill over silly stuff like this.
Authorities say it didn't seem silly to Buddy Potter.
He very tearfully recounted that these people had put a bounty on his daughter's head, that they had threatened to rape her, cut her up into pieces. And you could tell from the way he said that he believed it.
When I found out that they had arrested Marvin Potter and Jamie, I knew what it was over. It was over Janelle and the stuff that she had pretty much put in their heads.
He said he was trying to protect you. He said that they had threatened that they would chop you up and rape you and kill you.
Yes.
Is that what you told him? Because they weren't telling him that directly. Somehow he had to be getting word that these people were going to do some grievous, serious harm to you.
He would go in town, and there was people that would tell him that there was people out to hurt me, to get me.
Case closed? Far from it. Buddy Potter and Jamie Curd, according to investigators, they're not even the half of it.
You started to realize that this is bigger than just Marvin, Buddy Potter. This is something to do with the other people in this house.
Exactly.
More mystery, more murderers, and now a mastermind. A new character enters the story, a purported CIA assassin.
I like killing people.
All part of what prosecutors call the craziest, stupidest, deadliest catfishing scheme you have ever seen.
This is where Billy Payne and house.
There's no calls. There's no calls on either one of them. They're white. They're cute.
I mean, this was one of the biggest, craziest things that had happened in years.
You give him the pictures of the people that you say are taunting you, and you don't think he's going to do anything about it? Did you ever want Billie Jean and Bill Payne to die?
No, never.
You didn't even want them dead?
No, I didn't even want them hurt.
It appeared that there was some type of conspiracy here. They kept referring to a guy named Chris.
Who is Chris?
He was a CIA agent. Tall, blonde hair and blue eyes.
Jason Bourne. Did he ever talk about the kinds of things he did for work?
He did.
What were those things?
A lot of killing people.
I think someone else was playing games with our minds, our computer, our life.
There is nothing in your lives that has prepared you to understand the Potter family.
If you had to describe Janelle and Barbara with one word, what would you use?
Evil. That's what I would say, evil. Please.
What kind of person would take a revolver to a man who's sleeping and shoot him in the face, and then go to a woman who's running away with a child, an infant in her arms?
Cold-blooded.
And shoot her in the side of the head.
He's not cold-blooded. That whole thing's so sad. I'm so sad they died. That it's always bothered me that it had to involve my family.
This situation of two people being murdered in their own home was a great shock. And I think there was some relief once Marvin and Jamie were arrested.
The shootings of Billy Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth seem close to being solved. But, unlike horseshoes and hand grenades, close doesn't count in a murder case. And authorities are wondering whether all the killers have actually been caught.
While Buddy Potter is interrogated, other investigators search the Potter home and pickup truck.
I was left there along with other investigators to conduct a search of the Potter residence in an attempt to look for ammunition, any type of firearms that would be for a .38 special or a 9mm.
They were searching the house.
Yes, they did do that.
Did they go into your room?
No, they went to my parents' room first. And then they went to the second bedroom that we had, where my dad would keep his clothes and his stuff. And then my room, and then the computer room.
There's Deputy Joe Woodard and a stunned-looking Barbara and Janelle Potter during the search.
So did you notice anything odd in the house or anything unusual?
Whenever the investigators went downstairs, there was a lot of firearms. We had rifles, shotguns, it's just one of those.
An arsenal.
An arsenal, basically, yes.
Guns in the basement, guns in the bedroom, guns in the dresser drawer, and guns under the mattress. There's even an ammo belt on his oxygen tank. And knives. Lots of knives all over the house, even hanging from the antlers on the wall.
The search also turns up pictures printed from Facebook, including one of the recently murdered Billie Jean Hayworth.
Even found pictures of the victims in the living room.
You found pictures of the victims in the living room?
Yes.
Investigators say about 7 months before the murders, Janelle grabbed this photo of Billie Jean Hayworth from Facebook, emailed it to herself, then printed it off. The subject line, Billy Whore.
A printed out picture of Billie Jean Hayworth with the title Whore.
Which is kind of an odd thing to find after someone has been murdered in their house holding their baby.
Exactly.
They printed out a picture of her and wrote bitch across the top.
No, my dad wanted pictures of who was bothering me.
So you gave your dad pictures of the people who were bothering you?
Yes.
Why would you do that?
He just wanted to know, because if he was out or if someone was harassing me, he would want to know who they were.
Just then, Barbara Potter does something she will come to regret.
Barbara was sitting on the couch next to Chief Investigator Joe Woodard, who was logging the evidence. At one point, Barbara picks up a stack of papers, looks at it.
Then all of a sudden, she ripped it in half. And I stopped her and I said, give me those pieces of paper.
Why did you fold up the picture of Billie Jean? Try to hide it and tear it up.
I didn't, and I've tried to explain that over and over, but
You didn't do that.
I was tired and I was kind of nervous. I said, well, I'm getting bored, I just started doing that, not thinking that there was even a picture in there because I didn't know it was there. And then whenever I picked it up, and I just made a little tear, and I thought it was just
You didn't rip it in
trash.
half. Authorities aren't buying it. They charge Barbara with tampering with evidence.
They also seize what may have been Barbara and Janelle's fondest possession, the family computer.
I believe there was just one desktop computer that they all used, Janelle and Barbara. Marvin didn't get on the computer at all that I know of. I don't think I've ever heard him say anything about being on the computer.
Remember how the bullet that killed Billy had been scratched, marked with an X? Investigators find similar .38 caliber bullets in Buddy's pickup.
Marvin had taken a knife and scratched X's into the tip of the bullet to basically create hollow points.
Investigators also discover something in the bed of Buddy's pickup that will prove to be even more incriminating in the long run. And not just for Buddy.
They noticed several bags of shredded paper. So they went ahead, closed everything back up, and the vehicle was then transported to the TBI lab in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Those shreds of evidence lead investigators to a shadowy figure.
They kept referring to a guy named Chris, that's supposedly a CIA operative or something.
Who is Chris? Marvin Buddy Potter is in jail, awaiting trial, and so is Janelle Potter's boyfriend, Jamie Kern. But the feeling in town and at the courthouse is that justice has not been fully served.
I blame Janelle.
Immediately.
Because, it was her fault. She was the one that we was friends with, and she was the one that started the lies. Janelle should have been held just as accountable as them.
Billie Jean's sisters, Beverly and Jamie, say even before the murders, they believed Janelle was the troublemaker.
Jealousy, attention, she's an attention getter, and she would do the same thing to Billie Jean. She would follow them around all the time. Billie would call me and she'd be like, Janelle's behind me. There she is again. Just constantly.
If you had to describe Janelle and Barbara with one word, what would you use?
Evil. That's what I would say, evil.
It was several months after the arrest of Jamie and Buddy that I came into the case. I knew there was some thought in the community that the women were behind the killings, but they hadn't been charged.
I think that Janelle and Barbara were the ringleaders. I think they were the ones that were the manipulators. And I think they convinced Marvin and Jamie to do something awful to Bill and Billie Jean, and they followed through with it.
Early on, we wanted to charge Barbara and Janelle, but really didn't have enough.
We mentioned yesterday about Potter's daughter. She was in court today as an observer, although she has not been charged with any crime at this point. Prosecutors say she is at the center of this investigation. They say she is the common link to all of the parties involved.
Throughout the investigation, Buddy maintained that Barbara and Janelle really didn't have anything to do with the homicides, that he acted unilaterally in an attempt to protect his family.
Now, investigators take note of Barbara Potter's conversation with Jamie Kern when he made that phone call to the house after his confession.
Whenever Jamie had called their residence, Barbara was the one that first answered the phone.
Did it go all right?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And they just let you go and that's it, it's over?
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. We've been praying our hearts out. Jillian saw an angel today come in the computer room. And I said, oh, that's good. We've all been praying so hard.
And, she was asking, how did the polygraph go?
Did you have a lie detector?
Yeah.
And you passed it?
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm so glad, honey.
And investigators are even more suspicious of Barbara's reaction when her husband calls and confesses to murder.
After his confession, he made a recorded phone call to his wife, Barbara, where he told her that I did it. I killed them.
Before you find out from somebody else, I want you to know I was involved in it. I did it.
I don't understand.
And immediately, Barbara turns into Mama Bear, saying, "Oh no, honey, you didn't. You were right here the whole time. Tell him that you didn't do it. I saw you. There's no way you could have done it. You were right here next to me all night."
You don't have no rest, and you don't have your oxygen. You're really not yourself right now.
I know. Sorry. I just, it don't matter no more.
Have the nurse check you?
No.
They said a nurse will check you. You need to tell her what meds you're on and your oxygen and all that. But, you need to just say, you know, you're not you. That's that.
I don't think she was really shocked. It's just like, I think if she was shocked, she was probably shocked that he told. But I don't think that she was shocked that he had done it, because in my mind, I think she knew that he did it.
I don't know that he did it. As far as I know, he was in my home all night. He was in that lounge chair asleep.
Not in bed, though.
He sat up at night, every night, because of what was happening. And when I woke up at 7 o'clock, he was in bed.
I thought he was in a lounge chair.
He came to bed.
Oh,
I didn't hear him come to bed.
She was telling Marvin that you didn't have anything to do with it. I saw you. You were here all night.
This is not guilty, but you're here. You have to say that. Yes, sir, you can say that.
She was trying to convince him that, no, you didn't do this.
Hey, they try to shift. You do that. They're fixing it. He doesn't have to. You just say not guilty, but not. You're here. I saw you.
In that call, Janelle also encourages her father to claim he's innocent.
Daddy?
Yes.
Are you okay?
No, Janelle.
I've been so upset.
Honey, don't worry about it. Just take care of yourself.
Feel, but this isn't right. You didn't do anything. You were here. I'm so sorry that you have to go through this.
In 2013, Buddy Potter is found guilty of the murders of Billy Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth, getting 2 consecutive life sentences.
If Barbara and Janelle know more than they're saying, authorities suspect those 3 trash bags found in Buddy's pickup could contain a shredded paper trail.
We took those shredded documents. One of our agents spent a month of her life taping those back together.
And what they were printouts of emails, printouts of instant messages, printouts of pictures from Facebook.
Emails from Barbara, emails from Janelle.
Authorities said that Buddy Potter didn't have much use for the computer. So they said that Barbara would pull the family protector into the online war of words by printing out the alarming emails and social media posts and anything she wanted him to see.
Barbara tells Buddy about everything that goes on and sort of gets him all upset because Janelle's upset, because he's afraid somebody's going to hurt them.
But some of those emails also talk about murder.
You know, they talked about killing Billy Jean.
It appeared that there was some type of conspiracy here. They kept referring to a guy named Chris. That's supposedly a CIA operative or something.
Who was Chris?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know.
When Jamie Kern was interviewed, at the end, he asked,
Is the CIA here? CIA? No.
Very strange question to me.
I guess about the CIA.
I had certainly never experienced anything like this in my career to that point, and I can say a decade later that I haven't seen anything else like it since.
they had to be looking at the computer somewhere because they're the type that's always got to be doing something on the computer. We are going to the library, right in the middle of town.
Law enforcement isn't ready to close the book on the murders of Billy Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth.
Investigators follow Barbara and Janelle, photographing their Ford Explorer outside.
So we made contact with the library, and the library said that they usually came here. So they called us whenever they were here.
The Johnson County Sheriff's Department did keep an eye on the Potter women, and there is surveillance video of them going to the local library.
They videotaped them sitting at these two computers, and they got them as they walked through, and they even went and was shining the key fob camera through the books just so that we could see what they were doing each.
They were logging onto topics, logging into their email, logging onto Facebook, and just continuing this narrative of Janelle being a victim.
Not a crime, but evidence, investigators say, of how obsessed these two women are with what people are saying about them online, even after two people have been murdered.
It shows Janelle has to have a computer to know what's going on and, you know, what are they saying about her. That way she can reply back.
And now enters one of the spookiest characters ever to appear in a murder investigation. His name is Chris.
After we did subpoenas and search warrants and got emails, instant message records, text message records, we started seeing this name Chris pop up.
Barbara is talking back and forth to supposedly a CIA agent named Chris.
When Jamie Kerr makes his confession, everything's done. There's silence in the room, and Jamie just all of a sudden asks, I've got one question I need to ask you. And they go, what's that?
Is the CIA here? CIA? No.
Mike and Scott were sort of shocked by, you know, where did that even come from?
The officers had no idea what he was talking about.
I guess about the CIA. Because they said they worked for one.
He assumed and probably hoped that the CIA was on the other side of that door ready to take this case away from the TBI and set him free.
Who is Chris?
He was a CIA agent. Tall, blonde hair and blue eyes.
Jason Bourne. What kind of stuff did he do?
He said he was down here to protect me, protect my parents.
He communicated with them through Janelle's email account, through her Facebook. They were as tight as could be, and they were close.
Barbara would receive emails from this guy Chris, but the emails were still coming from Janelle Potter's email address.
Do you find it odd that Chris was written from your personal account? That all those emails were written from your personal account?
Yes.
And you never noticed that? You never asked the question? And all of that correspondence, there's not a single question. Hey, why is this person writing from my account?
Yes, it never showed up, but yes, I had asked how.
Who?
I emailed him through my email, and I said, you know, how'd you get my screen name, password? I changed my password lots of times. I've done everything.
It really does seem like bad fantasy fiction. A secret agent mixed up in a small town drama falling for a damsel in distress.
He would never show up in person. I would ask him to come over or meet me. Nothing.
How'd you feel about him?
Well, he was my friend.
I mean, he wasn't just your friend. He was... From the emails that I read, it seemed like you guys were very, very intimate.
We weren't. Actually, he told my mom he wanted to marry me at one point.
Janelle says this Chris seems to know her as well as she knows herself.
He would say things like, well, I saw you today, and he would tell me what I was wearing, what I was doing, how my hair was, and I was like, okay, this is weird.
Uncanny.
Really weird.
Chris even emails Jamie Curd via Janelle's account, gushing about Janelle. She just put up some new pics on Facebook. You might want to look. She is cute. And love advice, tips on how to be a better boyfriend to Janelle.
There were some Chris emails out there where Chris would suggest, why don't you get Janelle to go out with you tonight and take her out somewhere.
Here's romantic tradecraft CIA Chris probably did not pick up at Langley, but he offers it to Jamie. Make sure you have candles and a card, make the bed really pretty, and just love on her. She is a wonderful, sweet, caring girl. But Chris also has a cold streak, and he's supposedly a bloodthirsty assassin. Did he ever talk about the kinds of things he did for work?
He did.
What were those things?
I like killing people.
CIA Chris claims he's monitoring Billy Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth. Has their house bugged, phones tapped, says he knows they're up to no good.
He was watching these people, he said, that were harassing her on the computer.
He would say how upset he was. Why would anyone want to mistreat me?
He got mad.
Yes.
How mad did he get?
He got mad. He got really mad. He wanted to hurt everybody.
Who specifically did he want to hurt?
I think it was Bill, Billie, Jean. Everyone who was picking on me. Anyone that picked on me, he was after.
The emails show CIA Chris is angry. Authorities say he and Barbara talk about settling scores.
This was actually in the shredded documents that were found in the truck. She writes to Chris, Bud is so mad and I'm 100% behind whatever happens. You guys meet when you are ready, Chris. Maybe Bud can use CIA guns, etc. for his protection. Get the jobs done, They all need to go, and the ones left need to be given a big scare as they watch and wonder, am I next? That's chilling.
The job is obviously the murder.
Absolutely.
The job needs to get done.
Absolutely. But Bud can't do it by himself. He needs CIA guns with him.
At this point, identifying this fantastic character, CIA Chris, becomes key to closing this murder case. Who is Chris? Is Jamie Curd Chris? Janelle?
I don't know. Who can do this?
We're done there. We're done.
In the months after Billy Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth were gunned down, Janelle and Barbara Potter report being threatened by members of the community who suspected that the Potter women were also involved in the murders.
A lot of people are sort of harassing them.
They're trying to set me up, but I don't like this because I'm very sick.
They threw rocks at the house. I was calling the police a lot.
They even threw rocks in the yard there just to leave a message with Billie Jean's name on it, with Bill's name on it.
Their guardian angel, CIA Chris, seems to be missing in action. But when authorities take a closer look at the computer seized from the Potter house, they have a eureka moment. And that's because the IP address on Chris's emails leads back to only one place.
Every one of them pointed straight back to Barbara and Janelle's home address.
It was the same IP address, meaning that the emails were all generated at that house.
Authorities develop a theory that Janelle's a sort of Kaiser Sose of the keyboard. Remember him from the movie The Usual Suspects?
I work for Kaiser Sose.
There is no Kaiser Sose.
Creating the identity of Chris to con those closest to her and convince them that she's in danger and needs help.
Once we started looking at the communications between the Potter family, between Chris, between Jamie Curd, that's when we started building the case against Barbara and Janelle.
Investigators have their theory, but no definitive proof. At least, not until the Potter women show up at the sheriff's office to file complaints of harassment. That's when authorities devise a test.
I had them type out statements so that we can see how Barbara writes and see how Janelle writes.
The reports that they made about this alleged harassment, the word choice, The spelling, the grammar, the punctuation was compared against these emails, and it was interesting that this Chris character had the same spelling mistakes, had the same grammar mistakes as Janelle. That's when the pieces started falling into place.
Authorities believe that Janelle wrote messages as Chris to her mother, Barbara, that falsely reported threats of rape and murder by the victims.
Barbara would take this information and show it to Buddy. Buddy, look what they're trying to do to Janelle. Look what they're trying to do. And finally, they just pushed him to his limit.
Marvin Potter and Barbara Potter truly believed these people were out to harm Janelle.
They really thought that people were out to kill her.
She knew exactly what to do to get to her mom. She knew exactly what to do to get to her dad. Janelle manipulated everybody that she dealt with.
Janelle was writing these Chris emails.
Janelle was pretending to be the CIA agent.
She was masterminding a murder conspiracy. The events that she set into motion ultimately resulted in the death of 2 innocent people.
So she's catfishing her mom from the same house, from the same computer.
It's hard to believe that you can do that from the same house.
This is the worst catfishing I've ever heard of.
Yeah,
I mean, it's beyond absurd.
In all catfish cases, at some point, the victim of the catfishing is guilty of some degree of being naive.
Barbara has no idea that Janelle is using the same computer and her own email address to create the fictitious Chris.
She bought it hook, line, and sinker.
I don't think she created anyone. I think someone else was playing games with our minds, our computer, our life.
But Janelle's mother, Barbara, is about to go from naive to nefarious. And in the email exchanges with Chris, it sure sounds like she really wants Billy Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth dead. In one email, Barbara writes, "We've had enough. No one wants to kill anyone, but we will." Why did you write to Chris that you wanted them dead?
I didn't.
Yeah, you did. From these emails.
Well, you can read those emails if you want. I never want anyone dead, and I would never plan a murder. That is not me.
And you write, "I will kill if I have to. Not just hurt, but kill."
That's not me. That is not me.
Barbara says someone hacked into her email, but authorities don't buy it. They say that her writing style from the harassment complaints matches what's in the emails to Chris.
The more I studied, the more I realized these crimes do not happen without these 2 women prodding these men along.
A year and a half after the murders of Billy Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth, Barbara Potter and her 32-year-old daughter Janelle are under arrest for murder.
We finally got the word from the DA to go ahead and arrest
A mother and daughter charged with murder.
Accused of killing a Johnson County couple.
Barbara and Janelle Potter are charged with first-degree murder of Bill Payne Jr. and Billie Jean Hayworth.
I jumped for joy. I think I said hallelujah about time.
Authorities claim Janelle's motive for creating Chris was jealousy. If Janelle couldn't have Billy Payne, nobody could.
Janelle had a crush on Bill Payne, and the Chris emails start after Billie Jean Hayworth moves in with Bill Payne and gets pregnant. Chris would talk about the baby Tyler. They would call him that damn baby. That baby needs to die. No one talks that way about an infant, other than a woman perhaps who is jealous that that's not her infant.
Janelle is behind bars at the Johnson County Jail in 2015 when she and her attorney sat down for an interview with me about the case. You don't have any responsibility for the murder of Billy Payne and Billie Jean.
No.
None.
No.
No, but you hated them.
No, I didn't.
You hated them enough to tell your father that they were really torturing you. And you must have hated them if what you say is true, that they were harassing you time after time
I didn't
again and
hate
again.
them. I just disliked them. I wanted to quit. I wanted the harassment to stop. I went through a lot with them. But I never wished them dead. I never wanted them dead.
And then I bring up Chris. Chris was you.
No.
You or Chris. You invented him?
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
No.
Just happened to be from your email, happened to know all the most intimate details about you, and it just so happened that the only emails Chris has ever written are exclusively about Janelle.
No, because he was writing to my mom and he was writing to Jamie.
Of course, from your computer with your fingertips. No. It was from your IP address, from your email address.
I don't think we're going to get into that. She said
everything leads back to Chris. Chris apparently created this scenario.
She stated she's not Chris, and that's what she maintains.
You can't do this.
Janelle Potter shuts down in tears and walks out of our interview. Janelle may deny the authorities' allegations that she is Chris and that she's behind the online threats. But when this case actually does go to trial, you're never going to believe who shows up.
My name is Christopher Jaden.
Turns out, Chris isn't total fiction.
In the Johnson County community, there was an immense amount of anticipation for this trial. I mean, this was one of the biggest, craziest things that had happened in years. The interest in it never really died down.
The trial of a mother and daughter charged with murder for the 2012 deaths of a Johnson County couple underway right now in Jonesboro.
The biggest factors in Barbara and Janelle's trial was making the jury understand that all of this drama was being driven by Janelle. It was about Janelle, by Janelle, for Janelle.
There is nothing in your lives that has prepared you to understand the Potter family.
Investigators realize that there are even more people than they thought caught up in Janelle's web. Turns out Janelle does know a real person named Chris.
We were able to get Chris Jaden, the real Chris, to come down to court.
My name is Christopher Jaden.
We determined, well, Chris Jaden was a guy that Janelle went to high school with.
She was, one of those kids that just very strange.
Ends up he was a police officer in Delaware.
When we asked him directly, do you work for the CIA? And him saying no, I think that kind of put a face on the faceless CIA threat that Janelle always had in her back pocket. But Cameron Hyder, who represented Janelle, tried to present her as not capable of doing something like this.
She is not capable of directing anyone to commit murder. It's just not in her.
Janelle's defense attorney even called an expert to testify about Janelle's level of intelligence.
Very severely impaired cognitive dysfunction, very much patron.
She may be operating on a 4th grade level, but she's got a PhD in manipulation. You know, even kids can manipulate their parents, and she did it to the hilt.
She always had my parents to go to, and she had promised that they went to school to take care of it.
Would you say that she was intelligent?
She was more intelligent than people gave her credit for.
In what way?
Manipulative.
So she wasn't good at schoolwork, but she was good at working people.
Yes.
Especially her parents.
Yes.
It's very difficult for Barbara to discern what is fact and what's fiction. She has been catfished.
Prosecutors say that despite Barbara being entangled in Janelle's manipulation, she still bears responsibility for the murders. And prosecutors have found evidence that they say shows that Barbara knew exactly what was going to happen to Billy Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth.
She had emailed herself a link to a Billy Graham article saying, "Can God forgive a murderer?"
A couple weeks before the murders, you had searched, "Can God forgive a murderer?"
No, I didn't. That's not me. No, I did not. I saw that in court and I said, where did that come from? Why would I do that? I don't want anybody murdered.
Today, the state called 6 witnesses to the stand, one of which we've been anticipating all week. Mr. Jamie Curd.
We had worked out a plea deal with Jamie Curd in exchange for his cooperation.
I can't kill nobody. I mean, having a gun and being able to use it's 2 different things. Looking back on it, do you feel like you've been manipulated in any way by the Potter family? Yes.
If you're wanting the case to be everyone sitting around a table mapping out how they're going to go do the killing, we never had that. Our belief was that cozying up to Jamie was an effort to get Jamie conditioned to assist Buddy.
Jamie Curd ultimately pleaded guilty to facilitation of first-degree murder and received 2 concurrent sentences of 25 years.
It's the story
conflict born out of the mind of a very bored, lonely 30-year-old woman.
One thing that was very telling about Janelle being involved in the preparation for the killing is the text messaging she does with Jamie up through the morning. She's telling Jamie, leave your cell phone at home.
The messages on there, showed Dad's starting the truck and he's on his way.
And then all of a sudden the text messaging ends. And presumably around 5 in the morning, Buddy picks up Jamie and they drive over there.
So that, to me, linked her knowing exactly what was going to happen.
Where's the evidence? Easy to say, hard to prove.
This was an act of an overprotective father who went way too far. My client is not culpable. Marvin Potter is behind bars and is fully culpable for these homicides, as is Jamie Kurt.
This may have been more than what Barbara or Janelle intended, but that doesn't change what they did. That doesn't change how they manipulated Buddy Potter and Jamie Kurt into taking this drastic, horrible action.
The evidence in this case has been completed. It's now Matthew to instruct you as to the law.
It was up to a jury to decide whether this duo, Janelle Potter and Barbara Potter, were capable of plotting a double murder.
Now the jury must deliberate the Potter women's fate.
The families of the victims were in court today.
It was just like you're sitting there on pins and needles.
And now, family loyalties begin to fray.
I'm not going to cover anybody else. Take care of myself right now.
You wouldn't take a hit for your daughter?
Less than 24 hours after closing arguments, the jury delivers a verdict in Barbara and Janelle's double murder trial.
The families of the victims were in court today.
It was just like you're sitting there on pins and needles.
It's been physically and emotionally exhausting.
You will please bring the jury in, please.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Janelle Potter, guilty of first-degree murder. And Barbara May Potter, guilty of first-degree murder.
Barbara and Janelle were both found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Barbara was also convicted of tampering with evidence.
It's a relief that the people most responsible are going to be held accountable.
It was hard. We have justice.
This part's over, but it will never be over. I think about it every day.
I know me. God knows me.
Did you ever want Billie Jean and Bill Payne to die?
No, never.
You didn't even want them dead?
No.
It seems to me that you are either completely innocent and blameless in this, or you are an exquisite liar.
Oh, wow. Well, what do you believe?
The victims' families have the last word at a sentencing hearing, with Billie Payne's mother addressing the Potters directly.
Barbara, you want to know if you're going to hell? Yeah, you're going to hell. And if I have to forgive any of you and stay out of hell, I'll see you there.
Janelle Potter, the court hereby sentences you to a term of imprisonment for life. Barbara Potter, the court hereby sentences you to imprisonment for life.
Barbara Potter's post-conviction attorney was able to latch on to a conflict of interest that her trial counsel had by representing both Barbara Potter and her husband.
So she gets a new trial. It starts back from square one. Rather than go through all of that, she had requested to enter into a plea agreement.
I have a clean conscience about having a part of this. But I'm a part of it because I've been pulled into it.
You wouldn't take a hit for your daughter?
I love her, but I'm not going to serve life for her. No.
So years after our conversation where Barbara insisted she was innocent, she finally admits guilt. Barbara pleads guilty to facilitation of first-degree murder.
Her original sentence was life without parole. This plea agreement changes that, making her eligible for parole.
Janelle and Buddy Potter also filed for appeal, but they were denied. This is a story that has shaken that little mountain town for over a decade now. And what remains etched in everyone's minds is the memories of the victims, Billy Payne and Billie Jean, and their infant son, Tyler.
It's the little boy. Just thinking about him just breaks my heart.
You're lucky in life to meet people who I think touch everybody they come in contact with. And that was Bill and Billie Jean. They were just always happy and loved life.
And above all, the couple loved their son, Tyler. After the murders, he was taken in by his maternal grandmother. He's now 12 years old.
Meanwhile, Janelle's secret boyfriend and co-defendant Jamie Curd has now been released from prison on parole. He declined to be interviewed. That is our program for tonight. I'm David Muir.
And I'm Deborah Roberts. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.